Boy, it's good to be back. We are here on the campus of Oakland University, 88.3 FM WXOU, the Blue Ski Mask Show. We're back. Brock and Kurt after spring break. Kurt, I hope you relaxed and had an enjoyable spring break.
Thanks, Brock. I hope you did too. But sports doesn't stop for spring break, and we have a lot to talk about. So first on the agenda today, we're going to start with some Lions stuff. And probably the most interesting news so far has been the Lions extending linebacker Jalen Reeves-Maybin and kicker Michael Badgley. This has happened relatively recently. I know we haven't had a show in a minute, but Reeves-Maybin is now the highest paid core special teams player ever, and he is set to earn $7.5 million over the next 2 years. So I think this is a good signing. Reeves-Maybin made some big plays on the special teams unit. Brock, you have any thoughts on that one?
I'm not a big observer of the special teams, so I can't say whether this is a good extension or not, but we can only assume, right?
Right.
If they're comfortable paying him $7.5 million over 2 years, then that's they got to be confident, right? It's all I can really think about. I do find it interesting though that Michael Badgley, they extend him when it seemed late in the season they didn't have a whole lot of confidence in him.
Right. And what's interesting to me is I've always seen Badgley as he's more of like an accurate kicker, you could say, when he's inside his own boundaries. But I think kickers in the NFL have sort of shifted towards, you want guys who can kick those 50-yarders, and you could care less about the accuracy, I guess. Not care less about the accuracy, because you still got to make the kick, but I think we're shifting towards a different dynamic. So I wonder if we'll take a kicker in the draft. I wonder if we'll sign another kicker just for some competition. But yeah, decent signing, I guess.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting to see how he's used, especially considering how much Dan Campbell likes to go for it in the opponent territory. We saw that a lot in the 49ers game in the NFC Championship twice. They elected to go for it rather than kicking, so we'll see how much Badgley will actually be used. But moving on, Kurt, there are some rumors that C.J. Gardner-Johnson is looking to go back to Philadelphia.
Yeah. If that happens, I guess we'll have to change our name to the Green Ski Mask Show. But I don't really see Gardner-Johnson coming back as a Lion, just because this guy can't stay on the field, and the impact he had while he was on the field, at least for us, wasn't as big as I was anticipating. So I just don't see him coming back, and I don't see it being that big of a problem, especially when the secondary is so bad anyways. Would CJ Gardner-Johnson save anything? Probably not. So I guess we'll see where he ends up.
And he was a guy too that, for the most part, you mentioned he missed a lot of the season with injury, but for the most part, he was all sizzle and really no steak, right? He was a guy where he's going viral on social media for saying something stupid. He's waving goodbye to the 49ers fans and early in the second quarter of the NFC Championship game. Like, he was out there. His personality was out there. Like, emotions run high in those types of games, and I get it. But, going online and saying dumb stuff and really not backing up with anything on the field, I think is something that doesn't really belong in the Lions culture that Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes have built, right? So I don't know if it's worth bringing him back. You might just be better off going and finding someone in the draft, which we'll talk about that a little bit later on. But let's move on to Amon-Ra St. Brown, the other side of the ball, arguably the best player on the team. I think a lot of people would consider him up there with Aiden Hutchinson.
Frank Ragnow,
right.
So, yeah,
he's up there, and they're discussing a new contract.
Which is wonderful. I mean, I feel like St. Brown and the Lions go together like bread and butter, and this guy is going to get paid and he's going to get paid a lot of money. But this is the start of something I'm really concerned about looking ahead at the Lions' future is we have drafted so well, and we have to pay all of these guys. And that includes, like, Penei Sewell, he's due for an extension.
Yep.
And then you have Aiden Hutchinson due for an extension, and the list goes on and on. But if there was, out of all the list of guys we've recently drafted, Amon-Ra definitely deserves, and Penei Sewell, they definitely deserve a contract. Probably more than anyone else, just based off their impact. So we'll see when he does sign an extension. I'm sure it'll happen this summer or off season, since it is still technically spring. But I'm assuming we'll spend some more cap on some free agents before we do that.
Yeah, and you mentioned having to pay all these guys. It'll be interesting to see if some of them opt to take pay cuts to, for the betterment of the team. We've seen that a few different times throughout the history of the league. It's rare because guys want their money that they're worth, but you got to feel like a team like the Lions, where they know, they were this close to going to the Super Bowl last year. Some people think they would have beaten the Chiefs based on how that game went early on. They're right there. And you got to wonder if some of them might take a pay cut to, help the team. Team success is always more important than individual accolades. Plus, if you win the Super Bowl, you're going to get bonuses and things like that afterwards. So, I don't know. We'll see. But you have written here, Kurt, that the Lions' game day experience at Ford Field was ranked the best in the NFL this past season.
Yeah, and I mean, cool little award, I guess, cool little recognition. I just thought I'd throw it in here, because it's important that we have a lot of fans and a lot of energy, but I think it's, it coincides with the Lions being good. Mm-hmm. So I guess next year, whatever team is bad this previous season that becomes good, they'll also get the best game day experience.
Imagine reading that headline 5 years ago when the Lions were still awful.
True.
5 years down the road, the Lions were going to have the best game day experience in the league. It's tough to believe.
It is. It is really, really tough to believe. But here we are. We have the best game day experience, which, like, if I'm being honest, I haven't been to a Lions game ever in my life, but I highly doubt that our game day experience is better than, like, the Eagles or the Bills, if we're being real. I mean, I've seen some crazy videos at what happened, at least what happens at, like, the Bills games.
Yep. So, that tailgating scene is wild. I don't know if that factors into the voting, or I don't know how they came to this conclusion, but I wonder if they look at just what happens inside the stadium, because you're right, the Bills, they're jumping on tables, breaking them, and that's just a wild tailgating experience. And even a team like the Chiefs too, that's a really good atmosphere, and there are definitely some good ones, but it was tough to beat the Lions in terms of what happened inside of the stadium. They're definitely up there.
And I mean, props to the fans too, because man, Stafford was rattled when we played him in the playoffs. So without the fans, who knows if we beat the Rams and get that playoff victory.
Kurt, the NFL released some report cards recently, which, can I just say before we get into this, I think this is really weird. I think the concept of it is good, of grading things going on in the facility and with the team, but releasing it to the public, I think is just really strange. I saw the Lions grades come out a couple days ago or a week ago, whenever it happened. I just think it's weird.
Yeah, it's definitely weird because, we're seeing players grade, how they're treated, which is cool. It's needed, like you said, but as like from a fan perspective, we don't know about any of those things at all. We rarely know, like, I don't know what the Lions serve for lunch every day after training. Do I really care? No. But do I care that they think the food is good? I guess, maybe. But and like the treatment of families too. I'm not married to an NFL player, so I also don't really care. But nonetheless, the report cards are pretty fun, and they have some some funny stuff going on in them usually every year. I think like the Miami Dolphins ranked like ahead of everyone in almost every category.
Wow.
Which is cool. I would also love to play in Miami if I was playing football, I guess.
Absolutely.
And like you mentioned, the Lions, they ranked in the middle of the road, like 12th overall. And the worst graded aspects were food and cafeteria and nutritionist/dietitian. So maybe we'll assign a new nutritionist this offseason, I guess.
They also have to, I think Jameson Williams probably voted on increasing the area in which he can gamble in the facility. I think that's probably what he wrote down. But yeah, these report cards, they measure the treatment of families, food, the locker room, training room, weight room, strength coaches, travel, head coach, the owner. It's everything. Everything behind the scenes, that is, other than head coach, really. And like Kurt said, the Lions came in 12th overall. That's a grade of everything combined into one grade, isn't it?
Yeah. So middle of the road, slightly higher. But I guess the most entertaining aspect about the report cards is who ranked the worst. And one of those teams is the Washington Commanders, which is not really a surprise, at least to me.
That's expected.
But the Kansas City Chiefs are also one of the worst ranked, or they had one of the worst report cards. So what's so funny to me is on social media, like earlier this week, I saw a picture of the weight room in Kansas City compared to like this high school weight room. And the high school weight room looked like so much better. Like
wow.
The Kansas City weight room looks like, I don't even know. It looks from like the 80s.
That's crazy.
But what's even crazier is the Chiefs owner, Clark Hunt, who earned an F- grade, which I didn't know was possible as an owner. I didn't know this, but this guy legit has like a house inside the stadium.
What?
This guy has a 6-bedroom house, like basically inside. It's like a suite, but a 6-bedroom suite inside the stadium. And you have your 3-time championship team, at least of recent years, lifting weights in a weight room that is not nearly as good as some high school weight rooms out there.
That's bizarre. He's got a house inside the stadium.
I do have a link for you to check it out if you want to.
That is just crazy.
Like, it legit looks like a house, and it's inside the stadium. Like, it doesn't, like, compute in my brain, but 6 bedrooms, basically.
Yeah, I'm looking at it now. That's crazy. So, yeah, it's like a suite. You can see the field, and then you can just walk upstairs and go
to bed.
Yeah. I've never heard of that before. That's crazy. Something else interesting from these report cards. The Buccaneers players, I guess, rated the franchise as an F in terms of team travel. And according to Mike Jones of The Athletic, non-starters and players who have played 4 seasons or less have to room together. And if you want your own room, it's a $1,750 charge. $1,750 charge.
That's so crazy to me that you've worked all your life to play football professionally. You know, you dormed with like a teammate in college, and you get drafted to Tampa Bay. It's going to be nice weather. But when you're on the road, if you're not good enough, you got a room with a teammate. And I don't know, just kind of weird, I guess, at least in my opinion, that you still have to room with someone when you're a grown adult because your team said so, or you pay money.
And $1,750 too.
Right.
That's crazy. Where do they get that number from?
Who knows?
Unless they're staying in like, I bet they are staying in pretty nice hotels, but $1,750 for a room?
Yeah.
I don't know. That might even be more crazy than having a house inside the stadium. I don't know, but that's weird for sure. Let's move on to the draft, which is about a month and a half away, a little less than 2 months. Kurt, the combine was this past weekend, and you know, this is obviously where players can go and prove their draft stock. either improve it, or if you go out and have a terrible showing, you're going to fall, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is where a lot of the mock drafts are changed, is at the combine. And most notably this past weekend, three guys who may be the top 3 picks in the draft didn't throw. They were there. At least Caleb Williams and Drake May were. I didn't see anything about Jaden Daniels. I assume he was still there.
I assumed he was. I mean, why would you not go?
Yeah, I don't know. But they were there. They just didn't throw, which I think is weird. I don't know why you wouldn't throw. You're a quarterback, unless you're like scared you're going to screw up. But if you're going to be a top 3 pick in the draft, you shouldn't be scared that you're going to screw up, right? So,
right.
I don't know. I think it's weird. And even further, Caleb Williams didn't even give teams his medical info.
That I just didn't understand. Like, I understand his point where the Ravens aren't going to draft me. Why do I have to give my medical info? It's like, dude, everyone's just giving their medical info. Just do it. Like, just get it over with. Like, Caleb Williams is that Karen at the restaurant you're at. He won't throw. He won't give his medical info. And I saw a lot of people talk like, he's going to get drafted first overall anyways. Why does he have to throw? Well, why not?
Yeah.
Like, why not throw? And I think Caleb Williams said, just go watch my tape. Everyone who's interested in you already has watched your tape.
Mm-hmm.
They still want to see you throw.
Yep.
So.
And his interview where he said that about watch my tape, that really bothered me too, because he just seemed so cocky and arrogant in that interview where, I don't know if you saw it, he goes, there's only one of me. Or like there are 32 teams, but there's only one of me. Only one team's going to get me. So why should I bother doing this or this, that, or the other thing? He just bothers me. He just seems cocky and arrogant.
Right.
He's a good quarterback, but I think he should have thrown.
And it's interesting to see like Caleb Williams' attitude towards the combine, and then like Rome Odunze, who I saw like running the traffic cone drill until he got a time that he wanted. Like just kept running it.
Yep.
Like you have a guy who won't even participate, and then you have a guy who's over participating to show this is who I am and this is what I can do. And just seeing that contrast to me is just, it makes Caleb Williams look even worse.
Yeah.
At least to me.
I totally agree. And maybe even more notable than Caleb Williams not throwing was Xavier Worthy, who set the new 40-yard dash record with a time of 4.21. Kurt, I watched that live. First, he got a 4.25 on his first attempt. And I didn't think he was going to run it again. I thought he was going to say, listen, that's a 4.25. By far the fastest time of anyone that had run. I thought he was going to call it quits and say, I'm good with that. I'm the fastest receiver in this draft. I just proved it. But he said, no, I'm going to go out here. I'm going to do it again. I'm going to beat the record. And he did. He beat it by 1/100th of a second, which was set by John Ross, 4.22 in 2017. Ross was drafted 9th overall by the Bengals that year. But, you know, no one's really heard of John Ross because he got injured.
That was such a weird draft class, too. I think that guy from Western Michigan, Corey Davis, went like number 4.
I remember that.
Weird set of receivers, that draft class. But regardless, Xavier Worthy is going to be a household name probably up until the draft. Everyone who watches the draft is going to know Xavier Worthy set this record.
Yep.
And they're going to want their team to draft him. I think a lot of the stuff I've been seeing, they have Xavier Worthy going in the mid-second round, which I think is a fair comp. Do you think he's going to go any higher now that he just set this record?
I do.
You do?
Yes, absolutely. I don't know where he was projected to go before this, but running a 4.21 immediately puts him in the first round for me.
Really? Okay.
It may not be high in the first round like John Ross was. I think he's going in the late first round. And if I had to make a choice right now, a prediction, I'd say he's going to Kansas City at 32.
That would be crazy.
They need receivers, and imagine Patrick Mahomes with a guy who's got 4.21 speed.
And I mean, we've already seen that happen. Not going to say Xavier Worthy's the next Tyreek Hill, but
Yeah,
if you have the speed, you could be the next Tyreek Hill.
that's right.
But
So
we got to start the mock draft.
We do.
It's time.
we do.
Last, I guess 3 weeks ago, we ended on a cliffhanger because I thought Brock did some unspeakable things, quote unquote. And I've had 3 long weeks, including break, to think about what I said 3 weeks ago. And I've come around a little bit to understand what Brock is going to do in this mock draft. Do I think what Brock is going to say is going to happen? No. But let's just get into it.
Yeah, we just decided to restart because the combine changed things, and 3 weeks ago, the draft is totally different. I feel like from how it was 3 weeks ago. So we're gonna get into it. There's really still no surprise at number 1. We both have Caleb Williams going to the Bears. We talked about him earlier, but at this point, I don't think there's anything he could do to not be the number 1 pick.
The only thing I can think of is maybe a Laramie Tunsil 2.0. But wouldn't that be funny? That would be kind of funny.
That'd be crazy.
But at number 2, so in our previous mock draft, we didn't break off until pick 5. But at pick 2, we've already broken off.
Yeah.
And I have Jaden Daniels going number 2. I think I said last time I think he's the more talented QB over Drake May.
I totally agree.
And I believe that, and I think maybe someone at the Commanders sees that too, and they take Jaden Daniels.
I totally agree with you that Jaden Daniels is the more talented quarterback, and I think he's going to have a better NFL career than Drake May. But I feel like there's always that obligatory bust quarterback early on in the draft, and I think it's Drake May. I think this dude has bust written all over him, and I think it would be just like the Washington Commanders to miss on another quarterback. They might stick with him for a year or 2, but I just think he's going to be a total bust, and they're going to be searching for a quarterback by 2026 or 2027 again. So that's what I've got. I do agree with you. I think Jaden Daniels is the better quarterback. I just think the Washington Commanders will go for Drake May, but it won't work out. Moving on to number 3. This is where things get interesting. I might go on a little bit of a rant here. The New England Patriots, and again, we're not projecting trades because that just gets way too confusing.
Yeah.
The New England Patriots, who currently have the 3rd overall pick, I think we do both agree, because we both have it written here. We both agree they're going to go quarterback. We just don't agree on which quarterback. You have them taking Drake May.
And I have them taking Drake May. And I agree with the previous points you just made to a T. And that is why he'll go number 3 to the Patriots. But you have a much more interesting pick here. So I'll let you have the floor yet again to explain what you've done.
Listen. JJ McCarthy is going to be a top 5 pick. For anyone out there listening, you can bet the house on JJ McCarthy being a top 5 pick. I have him going 3rd to the Patriots. Now, do I think he will be a Patriot? I don't know, because I think a team is going to potentially trade into that 3rd spot to take him. Listen, this dude showed out at the combine. Arguably, maybe no one other than Xavier Worthy had their draft stock raise higher than JJ McCarthy did this past weekend in Indianapolis. Obviously, Williams, May, and Daniels didn't throw, so we couldn't compare him against the so-called consensus top 3 quarterbacks in the draft, but he looked like the best quarterback out there. And his footwork was clean. His accuracy was there. And most importantly, he's a winner. I don't think people talk about this enough. He was 27-1 as a starter in college. And I believe he was something like 35-2 as a starter in high school, where he played at Nazareth Academy in Illinois, and then transferred to IMG, one of the most renowned high school programs in the country. And he finished his high school career with something like a 35-2 overall record. The dude's a winner, and I think he's going to be the best quarterback in this class.
Well, I will say McCarthy did have a pretty good showing in the handoff drill. He was pretty majestic with his handoffs.
Handoff merchant.
Handoff merchant.
Yeah, I've heard. I've heard that one, but I'm telling you, man. And listen. I'll say one more thing. If either the Vikings or the Seahawks trade up to 3 and get JJ McCarthy, whichever one of those teams, I'll say it this way: if McCarthy ends up on Seattle or Minnesota, the team that he's on is going to play in the Super Bowl next year.
Oh my goodness! Okay,
that's my prediction.
I spent all this time trying to see your opinion through. I don't know if I can see that one through. But I will say a Michigan QB with a Michigan State running back would be pretty cool.
That'd be crazy, especially after what Kenneth Walker did to Michigan in 2021. That'd be interesting to see. But let's move on. I've spent enough time talking about JJ McCarthy. At 4, we go back to both agreeing on the pick, and that's Marvin Harrison Jr. I think we both agree he's the best receiver in the draft. He might be the best receiver prospect ever.
No doubt. There's no doubt about it. And I would like to see him go to a better team than the Cardinals, but there's a reason the Cardinals are up here so high, and there's a reason why Marvin Harrison Jr. will go this high. So he'll go to Arizona, maybe play some Call of Duty with Kyler Murray. And yeah, there's not much else to say about him. Everyone knows he's good. Everyone knows he's going to be just a force to be reckoned with. But at pick 5, we have the Chargers. And you have Brock Bowers here. I had Brock Bowers 3 weeks ago. I think, like a lot of other people, I've moved off of Brock Bowers going this high. And I'm going to have Joe Alt here at number 5.
I haven't been paying too much attention to the mock drafts. Has he slipped a little bit?
He has, and I think it's because if you spend such a high pick on a tight end, you want like the perfect tight end. And I kind of see why. And Brock Bowers is, he's built like a receiver, if we can be real and honest about it. I saw this side by side with him and Gronk. And, camera angles are everything, but Brock Bowers looks tiny compared to Gronk. So I think Brock Bowers might even be shorter than Marvin Harrison Jr., if I'm correct.
That wouldn't surprise me.
But
that's interesting.
Joe, I'll have go to the Chargers at 5.
Yeah. Jim Harbaugh loves his offensive line, so I could definitely see that. Moving on to 6, I've got the New York Giants taking Rome Odunze out of Washington. Am I confident in that? No. But I think he's the second best receiver in the class behind Marvin Harrison Jr. So I know the New York Giants need some offense, but they also need a quarterback too. And this is where you have them taking a quarterback.
I have them taking J.J. McCarthy at number 6. Stinks that he won't have Saquon Barkley to hand the ball off to. But, Daniel Jones, it's time to go, buddy. If we're being real. And I think, to me, J.J. McCarthy is the best QB left on the board here in my scenario. And, yeah, Giants go J.J. McCarthy. Is it a good situation for J.J. McCarthy? No. But, hey, there are probably worse situations to be in. Actually, I don't know about that.
That's tough. They just have no offense. They have no offensive weapons.
No, they have, what's his name? Jalen Hyatt. I think they drafted last year. He's a receiver. And then I had this guy on my fantasy team, and I'm already forgetting his name. Wan'Dale Robinson. They have Wan'Dale Robinson and Jalen Hyatt. And a tight end, I think. Oh, Darren Waller, I think. They have Darren Waller. Yeah. But Darren Waller is over the hill. So, we'll see. If JJ is a true winner, he can make it work in New York with those 3 names.
That'd be something else. Let's keep it going here. Number 7 overall is the Titans. They're in a tough spot too. They're kind of like the Giants. They could go quarterback, but they also desperately need help on the offensive line. I've got them taking Joe Alt out of Notre Dame.
I have them taking Olu Fashanu.
Yeah.
Both, I mean, offensive line is the safest pick probably to make. And at 7, why not? I mean, especially if Joe Alt is still left on the board, I'm pretty confident Olu will still be on the board here. So, just take the safe pick in Tennessee.
Yep. Atlanta at number 8. This is where things get interesting. I have him taking Terrion Arnold from Alabama. And I think that dude's a stud.
Yeah.
He is a stud. His draft stock really improved after the combine, if I'm not mistaken, too. So I wouldn't be surprised at all to see him go top 10.
I don't think he'll go top 10, but a guy I do think will go top 10 is, I'm going to butcher his name, but Talise Fuega, another offensive lineman. I think we see back-to-back offensive line picks here just to secure that. I think Atlanta has a good enough defense as it is. Secure that offense. They're going to get Justin Fields or Kirk Cousins. Let's be real. They're going to get a veteran QB. Take an offensive lineman. You already have all the weapons in the world. So just take that offensive lineman is what I think they'll do.
That'd be a good pick. I wouldn't be surprised at all to see him go O-line there. At 9, the Bears draft again. They have 2 picks in the top 9. And listen, you draft Caleb Williams, you're going to need to keep him protected. You don't want your prized number 1 overall pick getting beat up. So I've got him taking Olu Fashanu from Penn State. And could it be Joe Alt? Sure. I don't know. Could it be this Fuaga character out of Oregon State? Maybe. But I have no reasoning for my offensive line picks other than I think those are the needs of the team.
Right. And we'll see offensive linemen like shuffle through the draft. Like, I think Paris Johnson Jr. was the first offensive lineman taken last year. And I didn't think he was the best offensive lineman. And he was traded up for, too, I think, by the Cardinals. So we'll see a shuffle. You never know who could go first among offensive linemen. But I have the Bears taking Rome Odunze just to, get more weapons in Chicago, especially if you have a rookie QB coming in. I think their offensive line is average, maybe a little above average. Take a stud wide receiver and watch him and Caleb Williams work.
Yeah, that'd be crazy. You got the best quarterback in college football last year, maybe. He wasn't great last year. Williams wasn't. Daniels won the Heisman, but in terms of talent, most talented quarterback and arguably most talented wide receiver other than Marvin Harrison Jr. That'd be crazy to watch in Chicago. And rounding out the top 10, we go back to the same pick. And it's back on the offensive line. I think this is for both of us. 4?
Yeah.
4 offensive linemen taken in the top 10. J.C. Latham out of Alabama.
Yeah.
Going to New York. They got to protect Aaron Rodgers. He got hurt on, what was it, the 4th snap of the year?
4th snap, yep.
Protect
him.
He's got to get protected. So, J.C. Latham, again, at least for me, no other reasoning other than that kind of follows what other mock drafts have been doing, I think. I'm no offensive line expert. I don't pick apart the games of each and every offensive lineman, but that rounds out the top 10. And next week, we'll be getting into 11 through 20.
Possibly even more. Depending on if there's even anything of note to talk about in the NFL. Because there really hasn't been, if we're being honest.
All right, so moving into the NBA, the Pistons were kind of getting better when we last did our show and broke for break. But ever since our last show 3 weeks ago, they're 1-8. So really not a whole lot better than where they were at before. But Kurt, probably the biggest thing that happened in the world of the Detroit Pistons during the time we were gone, other than their win over the Chicago Bulls, was this game against the Knicks, where Monty Williams at the end of the game was upset, very upset. And it was just a bad look for the league, bad look for the refs, bad look for Monty Williams, I think even. And why don't you, for those who didn't hear it, let Kurtle explain what happened.
So I'll set the scene. Pistons versus Knicks. Pistons are on defense, and they're up a point. And there's this crazy loose ball that gets saved by Quentin Grimes that goes over to Simone Fontecchio. And Fontecchio dishes it out to Asor. The ball gets turned over, so the Knicks have the ball again. And then I believe it's Dante DiVincenzo who throws a turnover straight to Asor Thompson. But Thompson doesn't have like complete control of the ball. And Dante DiVincenzo just like not dives into him, but gets in the way of Asor Thompson and the ball, which is fine. But he made not a basketball move, and he made contact with Asor Thompson. And regardless of if Thompson had the ball or not, it's still a foul, and the Pistons probably win. Just because you're up a point, it's the end of, like, I think it was the final minute of the game. So you have to think, okay, the Pistons were in the bonus yet, so it would just start the whole foul process where they just have to go to the line, and the Pistons are one of the best free throw shooting teams in the league, and I have no doubt in my mind that the Pistons would win that game.
Yeah, and I think it may have been like the final 15 or 20 seconds.
Yeah.
It was like not a whole lot of time left. So you hate to see that, especially with the team struggling as much as the Pistons have been this season. But did you like how Monty Williams reacted after the game, or what were your thoughts of his reaction to that?
I liked it. I'm a big fan of when coaches aren't afraid to speak up for the team, and I think that's exactly what Monty Williams did for the Pistons after that loss. And I guess, we've hated on Monty Williams all season, us fans of the Pistons and everything, but it was good to see Monty Williams at least, do something good for the team, I guess.
Yeah, and it was also good to see the crew chief, James Williams, admitted he got the call wrong, which, does that change the outcome of the game? No. Does it give the Pistons another win in the win column there? No. But I think it helps fans at least feel a little better about the loss, maybe.
Right. Especially because when stuff like this happens, especially even if it's the NFL, NBA, a lot of the times refs will just double down on the terrible call, just to double down.
Yep.
But it's cool to see that not happen, I guess, in this situation.
That reminds me of, what was that now, 14 years ago when Armando Galarraga just about had that perfect game for the Tigers and Jim Joyce blew the call. And not only did he admit he got the call wrong, the next day at the next game, he was there crying at home plate, if I remember right. Like, he was so upset that he blew the chance at a perfect game. And I think things like that are good. It's good for referees to admit their mistakes. Talking about Cade Cunningham a little bit, there was a 2-game stretch during the break where Cade Cunningham played 2 games and 61 minutes of basketball and didn't attempt a single free throw.
Isn't that just wild to say? Like,
it is, especially in today's NBA where I feel like they call everything a foul.
Right.
But I don't know. I feel like that says something not only about the referees and maybe not giving Cade the whistle enough, but maybe it also says something about his play style where maybe he's not aggressive enough. I don't know. I don't know if anyone at this point is watching every Pistons game beginning to finish, but I haven't certainly, so I don't know if he's been aggressive or not. But
Cade has, I think, like, Cade's play style is weird because if Cade is attacking from the 3-point line to the paint, it's not like a Jaden Ivey attack where it's just straight go mode till you get to the basket. Cade will use he has great control of his speed. So he'll use his speed to his advantage, where he'll slow stuff down or speed things up till he gets to the basket. So maybe it's just because it's not your traditional, full run to the basket and then make contact. He doesn't get these whistles, but regardless, not cool to see. Especially in that game against the Magic. The Magic only won by 3 points. How does your lead guard, who's the best player on the team, not get possibly 4 free throws to essentially win the game? Just something to think about, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, you'd like to probably see him be a little more aggressive, because that's crazy. Not attempting a free throw in 61 minutes of basketball is wild. So at least getting to the rim and drawing contact, you'd like to see that maybe a little bit more out of him. Moving on to more off-the-court news, the Pistons have waived 2 players in the last 3 weeks. These are 2 guys that, if I'm not mistaken, they picked up this season.
Yeah.
In Mike Muscala and Shake Milton. And now they're both gone. Muscala was picked up in that trade for Bojan.
For Marvin Bagley. But now, in that Marvin Bagley trade, which we've talked about all the time, I don't really care. We got back Danilo Gallinari and Mike Muscala, 2 players who aren't even on our team anymore. So we got back nothing. We gave up Marvin Bagley, Isaiah Livers, not a real player, and 2 second-round picks for nothing. We just dumped it off to Washington.
Yeah.
But what is funny is I saw this tweet. Mike Muscala has a LinkedIn, and he updates it every time he gets traded or
really?
Signed. Yeah. So if you go to Mike Muscala's LinkedIn, he played for the Detroit Pistons as a basketball player for 3 months, and now he's back on OKC. So
is he really?
He is.
Wow. So
good things for Mike Muscala ahead of him. And yeah, I'm just really disappointed. Out of all those players, we dropped Mike Muscala. It should not have happened. But on the bright side, we just talked about the Wizards. There's the chance for the funniest thing ever to happen in the NBA. The Wizards are currently on a 14-game losing streak, and they have the worst record in the NBA. In the event that this streak continues, Game 28 will be against the Detroit Pistons.
Way.
And we know what Kyle Kuzma has said earlier in the season. Everyone knows what he has said. But how funny would it be? The Wizards tie the longest losing streak in NBA history against the team who their star player talked trash about, but also tied the streak earlier in the season. I think that's like NBA Finals level stuff right there.
That'd be hilarious. That's just wild. What are the odds of that? But I didn't realize they're on a 14-game losing streak. They have a worse record than the Pistons now.
Yeah, they do.
Wow. That's bizarre.
At this point, it's just don't be that team. But they're that team.
Yep. That's right. We're going to change it up a little bit here. We've got a few minutes left in the show. And, NBA news is kind of slow. The Pistons are bad. And NFL's in the offseason. So we're going to talk a little bit about college basketball.
Because it's March.
March.
You have to.
Yep.
You have to. Right?
The tournament. The tournament actually starts 2 weeks from today with the play-in games.
Which nobody really cares about.
That's true. But
respectfully.
2 weeks from Thursday, then, is, in my opinion, one of the greatest days in the sports calendar year.
I agree. I think about, 6th grade, coming into class.
Yep.
And then my teacher had March Madness on.
Yep.
I'm like, oh my goodness. Does it get any better than this? And it really didn't.
Yep. It doesn't. And listen, games start at noon on Thursday. There's at least, I don't know, probably 3 or 4 games on for the rest of the day, until midnight.
Yeah, for the whole weekend.
It's
too,
great.
Essentially.
Yeah, Thursday, Friday, you get those are when the first round games are played. It's nothing but basketball. It's great. I love it. So the biggest news from the weekend, I watched this live and it's unbelievably impressive. Caitlin Clark, which if you don't know that name by now, I don't know where you've been, but she's a women's basketball player for the Iowa Hawkeyes. She's a senior, a true senior, not even a COVID senior.
Not a fake senior.
This is her 4th season in college basketball. She broke Pistol Pete Maravich's NCAA scoring record. She scored her 3,668th point against Ohio State on Sunday, setting a new record for total points scored in the NCAA. And like we said, this is her true senior year. And we saw last year, Detroit Mercy had Antoine Davis come up 2 or 3 points shy of this record, but that was his 5th year.
Yeah. It would have been, to me, just respectfully a Mickey Mouse record if he got it. But here we have Caitlin Clark. She did it in 4 years, and she's moving on to the draft, which was a surprise to me, if we're being honest. But she averaged at least 26 points in college. Does she really need to prove anything else in NCAA basketball? Not really.
Yeah.
But I'm curious as to how much she makes through the NIL, because WNBA players do not get paid a lot of money at all.
Nope.
So I'm assuming she'll be taking a pay cut to go to women's basketball.
I agree.
But she'll have a chance to, change things up in the WNBA.
Yep.
And maybe we'll see those contracts increase. So,
and for anyone who has not been watching Iowa women's basketball, she's revolutionized the sport.
Oh yeah.
I mean, on Sunday afternoon when she broke this record, the game against Ohio State, it was number 2 Ohio State versus number 6 Iowa. It was the lead game on Fox on Sunday afternoon, ahead of any other men's basketball game. And Carver Hawkeye Arena in Iowa City was sold out. It was a crazy atmosphere, something you couldn't even have dreamt about a few years ago in women's college basketball. So what she's done is beyond impressive. She's going to be the number 1 overall pick. I think the Indiana Fever have the top pick. So she's going to the Fever, but just incredibly impressive. And some people say she has the 3-point line. Pete Maravich didn't.
Who cares?
It's still impressive.
Yeah.
So,
and I mean, this record was set in the 70s.
Yep.
I mean, it was about time it got broken.
Yeah.
So,
moving over to the men's side, something else crazy happened, and I don't even know. This is why everyone hates Duke. I think no one likes Duke, and I think this is a big reason why, because they got upset by Wake Forest, and so the Wake Forest fans are rushing the court, and one of Duke's best players, Kyle Filipowski, got bumped into, maybe hit a little bit, and flopped, and has to essentially get carried off the court. And they make it this big deal. Oh, we have to ban court storming.
No.
And then a week later, it was a few days ago, he's up there throwing windmills at Cameron Indoor Stadium in Duke. That makes me mad. I don't know about you.
Well, luckily, I thought long and hard about it, and I have a solution for Kyle Filipowski to ban court storming forever. Don't lose to Wake Forest. That is the solution, Kyle Filipowski. But I don't know, just so stupid. It's a part of the game. It's a part of the environment. It's going to happen, and there's no way you can stop it besides winning the game. So that is my advice. Hopefully, maybe Oakland will see. We'll play against Duke. And maybe Oakland upsets.
That'd be bizarre.
If we upset Duke, I'm storming the court.
You're storming the court.
I'm heading straight for Kyle Filipowski.
And you're a big guy too,
Yeah.
so maybe you'd do more damage than the. I think it was a girl that hit him, but maybe you'd do more damage than her. That'd be funny. But moving over to the west side of the country, really quick. We've talked about this guy before. Bronny James, LeBron James's son. Everyone is intrigued about what this guy's going to do because he's honestly not good.
No.
In college basketball. He averages, I think, 5 points a game, maybe.
Maybe around there.
And I saw a mock draft the other day that had him going in the second round, which is unheard of if his name isn't LeBron James Jr. And LeBron Sr. has had some thoughts of his own about this.
He does. LeBron tweeted out, in a response to a mock draft on Twitter, "Can y'all please just let the kid be a kid and enjoy college basketball? The work and the results will ultimately do the talking no matter what he decides to do. If y'all don't know, he doesn't care what a mock draft says. He just works. Earned, not given. And I don't. My take on this is, if you're LeBron James, who is one of the best players of all time, and you name your kid LeBron James Jr., there's automatically going to be these expectations put on you. Mm-hmm. And I mean, we usually don't see, the apple falls very far from the tree a lot in the NBA. I mean, Michael Jordan's kids, I think they played up until like college, and they didn't even play at like elite colleges, right? So I think Bronny will make it to the NBA. I just don't think he should this year. He needs to go back to USC.
I agree. And speaking of LeBron, we're going to move back to the NBA really quick before we let you all go. Recently, LeBron James became the first player in NBA history to tally 40,000 career points. That's impressive. And I know LeBron is very polarizing. He's a guy where you kind of either love him or hate him.
But you gotta respect.
You have to respect.
40,000 points is wild. And I saw this clip before the game, and he broke it against the Denver Nuggets. And Nikola Jokic joked with LeBron that they're going to hold him to 8 points, which would hold him a point off 40,000. You got to love Nikola Jokic, but I just don't see this record being broken anytime soon.
I don't either.
And he's going to get more than just 40,000. This wasn't LeBron's last game. He could hit 45,000.
Oh, yeah.
Realistically.
He might still have 5 more years left.
Mm-hmm. You never know. We've never seen a longevity as great as LeBron, and I'm an MJ stan. I think MJ is better.
I agree.
But LeBron is the king of longevity.
Yep.
And who knows when that longevity will end, if it ever ends.
Yeah, very, very impressive. And you're right. I don't think that's going to be broken anytime soon. Although with the emergence of the 3-point line and how much that shot has grown, I wouldn't be surprised if someone got close, but 40,000 points. I mean, he's been doing this since 2003. And he averages like 27 points a season every year.
Yeah, he's never averaged below 20 points a season.
It's crazy.
So, but anyways, up next for the Pistons. The Pistons play today in Miami. And 2 days later, they're going to have this long home stretch that kicks off with the Brooklyn Nets on Thursday. After the Nets, they're going to play the Dallas Mavericks on Saturday, March 9th. And wrap it up against the Charlotte Hornets, at least this week for us, on Monday, March 11th. And the Pistons will be going 2-2 in this stretch. They're going to beat the Hornets.
Whoa.
And they're going to beat either the Heat or the Nets.
Really?
2-2. What do you say, Brock?
I say 0-4.
0-4.
I say 0-4. I don't know much about the Heat, Nets, Mavs, or Hornets, but I know that the Pistons are bad.
Yeah.
So I've got them going 0-4.
With our luck, they'll go 1-3.
Yeah. Split the difference. Neither of us are right. And let me look really quick at the NBA standings because I want to see something. Because the Pistons, like you said, the Wizards have the worst record in the league by half a game at this point.
Half a game.
So the Pistons are 9-51. The Wizards are 9-52. So if the Pistons go 2-2, like you predict, Kurt, they'll be 11-53. If they go 0-4, like I said, they'll be 9-55. So either way, that's really bad. I see here that Washington must have lost a game since you wrote the notes because they're on a 15-game losing streak now.
15-game losing streak.
So 13 away from tying the record that the Pistons set earlier. That'd be crazy if the same record got tied twice in the same year. So
that's like 3 weeks away, roughly, depending on how the schedule settles out. But if they're 13 games away, that sounds like 3 weeks to me. Yeah. Maybe a little more. But we got to run, like Brock always says. We might not have a show next week pending an Oakland men's basketball victory this Thursday. So if we're on here next week, we'll be in Indianapolis. So We'll just throw that out there. Anyways, thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll see you next time on the Blue Ski Mask Show.